Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Dolphin Financial Radio Show. I'm Dan Wendell, and today we're going to be talking about taxes. We're going to be talking about state taxes, and we're going to talk about whether or not Florida doesn't have tax. And we hear this a lot. Our office is headquartered in Clearwater, Florida. We have clients throughout the country, but most of our clients are in Florida, and we often say, oh, Florida doesn't have tax. Is that true? No, it's not. But there is this feeling around the world or around the country that Florida is the place to be for a number of reasons. One of them is because they have no taxes. But in fact, that is not the case. We're going to talk about that. To help me talk about that, I'm going to bring in a co-host, a friend, and someone that lives in a state that has, spoiler alert, very high taxes.
That's true.
Tony,
Wow. Do we ever?
welcome to the show. How do you feel about Florida taxes, Tony? What's your
here's the deal. Yeah, that's a nice situation as far as Florida taxes. But then I see, things that could be done to improve Florida that aren't getting done because you don't have state taxes. So you see, there's two sides to this story, Dan. We're not going to get political, but hey, the one thing I can say about Minnesota, our taxes are outrageously high. However, we look good compared to California and New York. Let me just
Okay, you think so? You think so?
California
let's
for
today.
sure.
So
How much
what I want to
tax is
do?
on a tank of gas in California?
Oh, okay. So you think you know everything? You think you want to you putting Minnesota on a pedestal, or you're just saying there could always be worse?
I'm saying they could always be worse. I'm not saying we're. No, our taxes are high. Although where we live and where my wife and I moved to, we moved here from a state with very little taxes, Tennessee, because we were in Nashville, but we wanted to have children. And we looked around at the public education in Tennessee and said, we're going to move to this county, Washington County in Minnesota, where they have one of the highest rated public school districts in the country, in the state for sure. And it's one of the higher ones in the country. So we chose higher taxes to raise our kids in a better location. That's what we chose.
Okay. All right. Well,
but that's not for retirees. For retirees, they're leaving Minnesota in droves because of the tax situation. I admit that's for sure.
A lot of people are leaving certain states in droves, and a lot of people are coming to Florida.
Yes, that's true.
For political reasons? Is it for climate reasons? Is it for tax financial reasons? Is it for all the above? That's what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about the tax burden, right?
I'm going to take D, all of the above.
I want to talk about tax burden. I'm not talking about income taxes. I'm talking about total tax burden. And this is percentage of personal income towards state and local taxes. So we're not talking about national taxes here. We're not talking about the IRS and paying your national tax, U.S. government tax, right? And I'm going to reference this. I'm putting it on the screen for people that are watching on YouTube, but the listeners, I'm referencing the 2022 tax burden by state. This is put out by WalletHub. Adam McCann is the author. He put this out on March 29th, 2022. And for the listeners here that are listening to this now, it is tax time. You probably have just a couple of days left now to file your taxes or an extension, which it's no shame filing an extension. Just make sure if you owe money, you pay it so you don't get penalized. So we're talking about state taxes here, not federal. Sure. Okay. Sure. So this 2020 tax burden, what is tax burden? Tax burden covers three types of taxes, Tony. You got property taxes, individual income taxes. So some states actually have an income tax at the state level, like Minnesota. And then you have sales and excise taxes. So property taxes you pay on your home or your property. Everyone knows what that is. Individual income tax you pay on your income to the state, not to the, this is in addition to the federal. You know, like when you file your taxes, do you want to file a state return? You know, some states have a state return because they have state income tax. And then finally, sales. Sure. We know what sales tax is. That's what you pay when you buy something. What is excise tax? That's one that people like. What is that? That sounds.
I don't know what that is.
Exercise?
I've
Do I
heard
get
it
taxed
before.
for exercising.
I learned it in college, but I forgot.
Excise tax.
Of days.
Well, so excise tax is a tax on something specific. So a lot of people know that there's a gas tax or tobacco tax, like pipe tobacco or cigarettes, right?
Gas.
Like in New York, I think there's a national excise tax on cigarettes. I don't even know what it is, maybe $1. But in New York, I think there's a state excise tax on a pack of cigarettes. And I think it's like $4 or $5.
Yes, in California, it's crazy. It's like I think it's like $6 or $7 a pack.
So if you're going to buy a pack of cigarettes and the excise tax is $6, that's just to open the door to buy it. And then you have to actually pay for it, right? So, excise taxes. How about excise taxes for retirees? There are some. If you take a retirement withdrawal from your retirement account before age 59 and a half, you have to pay 10% excise tax. It's not a penalty, it's an excise tax. If you fail,
we always call it a 10% penalty, though.
Right, because it is a penalty. See, I don't want to, but
semantics.
It's technically an excise tax. If you fail to take your RMD, required minimum distribution, what age, Tony, do RMD start? What age?
72.
72. All right.
Used to be 71 and a half.
That's right.
Because the IRS is they're messed up. But they just want to confuse things. They moved it from 70 and a half, not to 71.
I'm applauding you, Tony. You got that one right.
All right.
It used to be 70 and a half. Now it's 72. So if you fail to take your RMD, your required minimum distribution at 72, you get a 50% excise tax.
Wow. That's a big one. That's a big penalty right there in an excise tax.
All right. So we take those three. So we got property, individual income taxes at a state level, sales at a state level tax, and then excise tax, right? So I just named some excise taxes at a federal level. The IRS is the one that hits you with the 50, the excise tax for your required. But the state has their own taxes. There might be a ad valorem tax or something. In my county, there's a penny. They call it penny for Pinellas. This is a penny of every transaction goes to local taxes, local spending, right? So for big projects, like
what is it called? What did you say? A penny for
Pinellas. The name of the county is Pinellas County.
Oh,
or
penny
if you
for
live,
Pinellas.
if you grew up here, you might call it Pinellas. And it's a penny of transactions goes to it into a big pool, and that's mostly used for capital improvements, roads and buildings and stuff like that.
Makes
so
sense.
When you were describing leaving Tennessee to go to Minnesota, you knew that you would be paying more local taxes for the schools because the federal government taxes don't impact schools.
Nope.
Local taxes do. Okay, so we talked about what an excise tax. So Tony, crystal ball here. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I want you to name the state that you think. If I can find a drum roll, I should have a drum roll handy.
I don't. I used to have one, but it's been overridden by a lot of other more important sound effects.
So how's it going down there in financial services?
State.
So how's it going down there in financial services?
Oh, there it is.
Which state has the highest taxes?
I would say California.
No.
Really?
All right, let's do another one. Let's do another one. Which state? Which state has the lowest taxes?
South Dakota.
South Dakota? No. Let's go. Yes, 0 for 2, Tony. Yours.
But I'm close. The states I named are close to what you're asking.
I agree.
They've got to be within one or two.
We will show you. I'm going to show you.
All right.
But number one in the country, New York.
For highest taxes?
Highest tax burden. This is going to be a combination again of
So
personal income tax,
it's a
property,
close
and
call, I
excise sales.
thought. I bet California is a close second. Do you have that information?
I do.
You're not going to give that to me.
Lowest taxes in the country is Alaska at an effective 5.06.
Wait, we're
tax
counting
burden.
Alaska as a state now? So when did that happen? Come on.
You'd
They're
be
not even
surprised,
attached.
Tony, how wrong you are. I'm going to give you a chance to make up for yourself now. Remember, we're
Okay.
talking about Florida, but we're going to talk about Minnesota. Is Minnesota a higher tax burden or a lower tax burden than California?
Boy, I don't know. I would say lower, because if you're calculating things like cigarettes and gas, because that is depends. Are you talking about just state taxes, or are you talking about property taxes? Because I know property
We're talking
taxes in
about total
California.
taxes. We got property, individual state income taxes, and then sales and excise.
I would have to say California. How can Minnesota doesn't have gas tax? We don't have that high a tax on cigarettes. We don't have that high a tax on. I mean, our property taxes are crazy.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen, but let me start by saying Florida is ranked 44th for overall tax burden. Only 5 states, including Alaska,
That's not surprising.
have a lower tax burden.
They don't have state taxes.
Right. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my
South
screen.
Dakota has to be down there. I bet one of those 5 states is South Dakota.
You think so? Let's look. Can you see my screen?
All right, New York. Oh,
Well,
Hawaii.
here's the
see,
map.
you're counting Alaska and Hawaii. I don't count those.
So here's the map, right? The darker blue is higher taxes, and you get closer to white, you have no taxes, right?
Wow.
So number 1, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
We got Maine for number 3.
Mm-hmm. Mainers.
Well, I can't remember what number 4 is. Number 4 is Vermont.
Vermont.
Go figure. Go figure. And number 5 is Minnesota.
Yeah, we made the top 5.
So here it is: New York, Hawaii, Maine, Vermont, Minnesota. California is number 9, Tony.
Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah. But look how close it is. So New York's at 12.75. And Hawaii is 12.7. That's high. Minnesota's at 10.2, and then California is at 9.7. So it's not, 0.3, 30 basis points, 40, 50, 0.5%.
Sure. Still, though, it's a surprising number. So let's look at the bottom, like top 10.
Right.
Who are the lowest?
Well, look, you scroll down. Actually, I'll sort it this way. I could sort.
I'm really curious where South Dakota
Alaska,
comes in, because
Tennessee. There it is, Tony. Tennessee's 49th. So they have a very small state income tax there. Individual. But really, look how low their property taxes are compared to Alaska. Delaware surprised me to see that.
But wait, what year was this done?
This is 2022. This is just
because that Tennessee number for property taxes is going to, I'm going to guess, double by next year, because I know what's happening in Tennessee, at least in the Nashville area. The property taxes and housing prices are skyrocketing right now.
Well, you could say the same about everybody there. So
yeah,
like in Florida,
that's true. It's subjective, I suppose. They'll all rise. Yeah.
But it's all as a percentage of income. So they all theoretically will rise because income isn't going up as high. But if we look at Delaware, surprisingly, was 3rd lowest. Wyoming, New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's in between 1 and 2, or 1 and 3. With Maine and Vermont. New Hampshire's right in the middle there.
That's interesting, right? They're in between 2 super high tax states,
right? And Massachusetts isn't so low either. So you're going to find that, like that's a pocket, like a bubble there that people.
I bet there's a lot of retirees that are living there versus those other states.
And I'm not going to lie that when I went to college in Boston, we sometimes would drive up to New Hampshire to buy things because the excise tax was lower than they were in, but look at the property taxes are high in New Hampshire. So it's all relative, right? They have low state income tax, but the property tax, Florida is low across the board, low property taxes. And then we have high sales tax. And a lot of people say, and there's your South Dakota. Yeah, you were right. It's up there. in terms of
Not
low
in the
taxes.
it's not in the bottom 5 though. I'm shocked because
It's
they don't have
6,
very
Tony. It's 6. Give yourself some credit.
yeah. They have a really high sales tax there. That's what I think that if South Dakota, that's what brings them up a bit is their sales tax
Right.
because they don't have like I know companies are moving to South Dakota in droves because they don't have the state doesn't tax the corporations there.
Right. Right. But, highest individual income tax.
Because otherwise, why would you move to South Dakota?
Well, right. Well,
I mean,
for jobs, right?
North Dakota shouldn't have any taxes because to get people
You
to
know,
move there.
I might have to bring Chris Kuntz in here, from Dolphin, because he's from South Dakota. He might take offense for this.
I'm sure he would. I would love to have him here.
They go into some red versus blue states as to which one the tax burden is, and then there's a discussion about progressive tax versus regressive tax. So progressive tax is as you make more in income,
you pay more in taxes.
You pay more in taxes. So you can make the case that the income tax is very progressive because as you move up in tax brackets, you pay more. And if
whereas
you don't have a lot
sales
of
tax
income,
is regressive.
Right. I like to call
you
it
pay
flat.
less. It's regressive because you pay less of a percentage of your income in sales tax versus more.
Right. So they have a discussion on this article, which is an interesting one that I'm not going to have with you about whether or not taxes are fair. What is a fair tax? Is property tax a fair tax? Well, could you make the case that the more income you have, the higher your property value, you should be taxed more because your property value. So the more wealth you have, the higher taxes you pay. And that is a legitimate case to make, which is the way we live in this country. But you can also make the case that everyone should pay the same exact percentage of their income. That's truly fair, right? Because if you think about it, if I have my twins just had their 12th birthday, so we had a birthday cake, right? Yeah. Should I give a different size slice to Jonathan because he has slightly better grades than Zachary?
I'd like to see you try.
Should they? Right. So I'm not doing that. I might as well go work as a tax collector. I'd get a
You're going to create a problem if you do that. You know better than to stir that hornet's nest.
So to conclude, there is no such thing as a tax-free state. You can't find a tax-free state. No. You can go to Alaska, but you're going to have other things to deal with, and you do have state and local taxes.
Sure. But Florida is one of the lowest, and that's one reason why people move there. I know a lot of people from here move there for the weather.
Right. But you also have to factor in state and local taxes, which are highly variable. So even within, all right, I'm going to move to Florida because I'm not going to have state income tax versus Minnesota, right?
Right.
That's a definitive yes, right? So there's nowhere in Florida where you're going to have a state tax, but you're going to have local taxes, and those can be highly variable as well. You're going to have the sales tax and so on. But like I mentioned, in my county, there's a separate little tax. You might move to a location that has a homeowners association. That's not a tax per se, but that's an added expense if you're going to live in that area. So everything kind of is localized. But if you use the overall tax burden, like they did in this article or this study with WalletHub, then you can get a good idea as to where you will move in the country to reduce your tax burden. All things equal, Tony, if your income is really high, you're going to want to move to a state without any state income tax.
Yes.
Because that's just simple, right?
Yeah.
So, but can you make the same income in a different state?
That's the question.
And that the pandemic kind of got that going where people were able to work from home. Well, why not? Why can't I just continue this? And instead of calling New York my home, why don't I call Florida my home and still work for the New York company? But hey, I'm a resident in Florida. There goes my state income tax. So, and there's city taxes. Like when I lived in Philadelphia, there was a city tax because I was a resident of the city, in addition to the state, in addition to the federal. So it depends on where you live. It's all hyper local. But I would say overall, if you use an overall tax burden, Florida does have a very low tax rate compared to the rest of the country.
Sure.
Which is why we love it.
It really it really does. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why you got people moving there in droves.
That's right. And there's no snow removal penalty here. That's another reason. So come to Florida.
You don't have to pay for the snowplows.
If you're coming to Florida and you want to do or if you're thinking about coming to Florida and you want to say, hey, Dan, if I do move to Florida, what will my tax liability look like compared to where I live today? Can you talk to me about that? And that's the kind of conversations I love to have, because I get geeky about it and I can stand up for Florida. Hey, I wasn't born in Florida. None of my kids were born in Florida, but I'm a Florida resident now and I love it. So come, Tony, come on down. The weather's the water's warm.
I would love to. Believe me. My wife is there right now, and but she sent a picture. I mean, you got to take the good with the bad, though, Dan. She landed her company sent her there for business, but she's staying to take our youngest to Disney World. But she flies into Orlando. She goes to this business center, and she's doing some work before the event, and she turns around, and it's a really fancy place, and she texts me a picture. Tony, exclamation mark, what is this? Exclamation mark. And it's a picture of a lizard on the carpet behind the chair where she's working. And I just text back. I said, LOL, welcome to Florida. I said, that's a carpet lizard. Never mind. And she goes, my back is to it. Is that a bad thing?
A lounge lizard. Yeah, they go up on the back of your head and in your ear.
She goes, my back is to it. Should I be worried? And I'm like, no, it's like a little... no, you don't need to be worried. Just
make sure they don't lay eggs in your ear. That's what they're known to do, right?
Lay eggs. I'm not gonna tell her that.
No, I'm just kidding. So,
what is your tax plan?
What is your tax plan?
My tax plan: retire in Florida.
What is your tax plan?
All right, same. That's all I got.
That's all you got. Well, thanks for another show. Good show, Tony. Come to Florida, everyone. Taxes are great here. Stay away from those high tax states. And unless you're raising kids like Tony's doing. But hey, I'm raising my kids in Florida. I love it. Speaking of those, I'm going to send them in to send us out.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.